Picture this. You're standing at a charging station, watching your car go from nearly empty to road trip ready in the time it takes to grab a coffee. 5 minutes, 400 kilometers of range. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, it's happening right now in South Africa, and it might just change everything you thought you knew about electric vehicles. Forget everything you've heard about EVs being expensive, slow to charge, and impractical. The game is changing, and Africa is about to become the next major battleground in the electric revolution. Let's be honest for a second. When most people think about electric vehicles, 3 massive roadblocks immediately come to mind. First, the eye-watering price tags that make your wallet weep. Second, that nagging anxiety about running out of juice in the middle of nowhere with the nearest charging station 50 kilometers away. And third, the dreaded charging time. Because who wants to sit around for hours waiting for their car to charge when you could fill up a petrol tank in minutes? These aren't small concerns. They're legitimate barriers that have kept millions of potential buyers firmly planted in their combustion engine comfort zones. And honestly, can you blame them? But here's where things get interesting. What if someone cracked the code? What if there was a way to solve all 3 problems at once? Enter one of China's most ambitious automotive companies, pushing aggressively into the South African market with a bold promise: affordable electric vehicles that charge faster than you ever thought possible and go farther than you'd expect. We're talking about a company that's been quietly building its presence in South Africa for 15 years, and now they're ready to make some serious noise. The strategy is comprehensive and, frankly, pretty brilliant. They're not just selling cars and hoping for the best. They're rolling out an entire ecosystem. Dealerships popping up across the country, ultra-fast charging infrastructure being installed at strategic locations, and a lineup of vehicles designed specifically to address those 3 pain points we talked about. Now let's talk about this flash charging technology, because this is where things get wild. Imagine a charging system with 1 megawatt of capability. If you're not a tech person, don't worry about the numbers. Here's what it means in the real world. You pull up to one of these chargers, plug in your car, and in just 5 minutes you've got enough power to drive 400 kilometers. 5 minutes. That's less time than most people spend scrolling through social media while waiting in line at a fast food drive-thru. The executives behind this push are crystal clear about their intentions. They are investing heavily in this charging infrastructure because they understand something fundamental. It's not enough to build great cars if people don't have a practical way to keep them running. The charging network isn't just an add-on. It's the foundation for everything that comes next. Without it, none of their ambitious plans work. With it, they're removing one of the biggest psychological barriers keeping people from making the switch to electric. But infrastructure alone won't win over skeptical consumers. You need the right product at the right price. And that's exactly what they're betting on with their newest launch, a model called the Dolphin Surf, priced under $24,000. In South African currency, that's less than 400,000 rand. For context, that's significantly cheaper than many conventional cars on the market, and it's a price point that suddenly makes electric vehicles accessible to a much broader segment of the population. Think about what this means. The traditional excuses for not buying an EV are evaporating. Can't afford one? Here's an option under 400,000 rand. Worried about range? This thing goes 400 kilometers on a single charge. More than enough for most people's daily driving needs and even weekend getaways. Afraid you'll be stuck waiting for hours at charging stations? 5-minute top-ups with the new charging technology. Industry analysts are paying close attention, and they're cautiously optimistic. The consensus seems to be that if these 3 criteria are genuinely met, fast charging, substantial range, and an affordable price, consumer demand is highly likely to increase. It makes sense, right? Remove the barriers, and people will walk through the door. The Dolphin Surf appears to tick all 3 boxes, which is why there's growing anticipation about whether this could be the tipping point for mass EV adoption in South Africa. Of course, it remains to be seen how this plays out in the real world. Consumer behavior doesn't always follow logical predictions. People have habits, brand loyalties, and emotional attachments to the roar of a petrol engine. But the value proposition here is becoming harder and harder to ignore. Now, here's where the story gets even more interesting. The South African government has been actively trying to attract Chinese automakers to establish manufacturing plants locally. Why? Because manufacturing means jobs, economic growth, supply chain development, and technology transfer. It's not just about having more cars on the road. It's about building an entire industry that can employ thousands of people and contribute significantly to the national economy. But the company's approach to manufacturing is pragmatic and market-driven. Their philosophy is straightforward. If the market justifies it, they'll build there. They're not going to construct massive factories on speculation. They want to see proven demand first, and they have a successful template to follow. Look at Brazil, for example. The company built a thriving business there, demonstrated strong market demand, and then invested in a giant manufacturing facility. The production line was launched with significant fanfare, attended by high-level government officials. And what are they producing there? The same Dolphin surf model they're now bringing to South Africa, along with other vehicles. It's a blueprint. Prove the market, build local trust and sales volume, then commit to local manufacturing. If South Africa follows a similar trajectory, and there's reason to believe it might, we could be looking at significant manufacturing investment in the coming years. That would be transformative, not just for the automotive sector, but for the broader economy. But wait, there's more to this story than just cars. The company's ambitions extend far beyond putting electric vehicles on the road. They're positioning themselves as a comprehensive clean energy solutions provider. Solar panels, battery storage systems, integrated home energy solutions, the works. The vision is to service not just your transportation needs, but your entire energy ecosystem. Imagine this scenario. You visit a dealership, and yes, you can buy a car, but you can also get a complete solution for your home. Solar panels on your roof generating electricity during the day, battery storage systems saving that energy for nighttime use, and your electric vehicle charging from your own clean, renewable power source. You're not just buying a product. You're buying into an entire sustainable lifestyle. This is the pitch. Total energy independence powered by technology. And it's not just a pie-in-the-sky concept. They've already implemented similar systems successfully in various countries around the world. The technology works. It's proven. Now it's about scaling it across African markets. Speaking of which, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. South Africa is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The ultimate goal here is nothing short of transforming Africa's relationship with electric vehicles and clean energy. We're talking about igniting an entire continent's appetite for EVs. That's an audacious mission when you consider the challenges. Africa has strong legacy car brands with decades of established presence and customer loyalty. There's also a massive second-hand car market. Millions of used vehicles imported from Europe, Japan, and elsewhere, offering cheap transportation options that new electric vehicles have to compete against. These are formidable obstacles. But the strategy seems to be working. Slowly but steadily, they're building both trust and market share. The approach is methodical. Invest in key markets, establish a presence, prove the product's work, provide excellent service and support, and let word of mouth and actual performance do the heavy lifting. Beyond South Africa, they're actively expanding into Egypt, Morocco, and Kenya. Each of these markets has its own unique characteristics and challenges, but together they represent some of Africa's largest and most strategic economies. Success in these countries could create a domino effect across the continent. And the vision extends beyond just private cars. Think bigger. Taxis, delivery vehicles, transit buses. The company is already rolling out electric buses in South African cities. Imagine if entire public transportation fleets went electric. The impact on urban air quality, noise pollution, and carbon emissions would be enormous. Plus, the operational costs of electric buses, with their lower fuel and maintenance requirements, could make public transportation more economically sustainable. This is the long game. It's not about selling a few thousand cars and calling it a success. It's about fundamentally transforming the automotive landscape of an entire continent. It's about creating the infrastructure, changing consumer perceptions, building local partnerships, and potentially establishing manufacturing that creates thousands of jobs. Is it realistic? Can one company really catalyze such massive change? Well, consider this. 15 years ago, this company was barely known outside of China. Today, they're one of the world's largest electric vehicle manufacturers, outselling established giants in multiple markets. They've done it before. The question is whether they can replicate that success in Africa, a continent with unique challenges but also enormous potential. The timing might be perfect. Fuel prices remain volatile, climate change is an increasingly urgent concern, and a growing middle class across African nations is looking for reliable, modern transportation options. If electric vehicles can truly deliver on the promises of lower operating costs, minimal maintenance, and environmental benefits, all while being affordable and practical, why wouldn't people make the switch? Of course, there are still hurdles. Electricity infrastructure in many African countries is unreliable. Power outages are common. If you can't count on the grid, how can you count on charging your vehicle? This is where integrated solar and battery solutions become especially relevant. If your home has solar panels and battery storage, you're not dependent on the grid. You're generating and storing your own power. Suddenly, an unreliable electrical grid becomes much less of an obstacle. There's also the question of repair and maintenance networks. People need to know that if something goes wrong with their vehicle, they can get it fixed quickly and affordably. Building that service infrastructure across diverse and sometimes remote markets is a massive undertaking, but it's essential for long-term success. So, where does all this leave us? We're watching a fascinating experiment unfold in real time. A major player in the global electric vehicle revolution is making a serious, comprehensive, long-term bet on Africa. They're not just selling products, they're building ecosystems. They're addressing the real concerns that have held people back from adopting EVs, price, range, and charging time, with concrete solutions. The Dolphin Surf under 400,000 Rand. Flash charging that delivers 400 kilometers of range in 5 minutes. An expanding network of dealerships and charging stations. Plans for local manufacturing if market demand proves strong enough. And a broader vision of total clean energy solutions that go far beyond just transportation. Will it work? That's the billion-dollar question. Success is never guaranteed, especially in markets as complex and diverse as those across Africa. But the pieces are falling into place. The technology is proven. The pricing is competitive. The infrastructure is being built. And, perhaps most importantly, the commitment seems genuine and long-term. If you are watching from South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Kenya, or anywhere else on the continent, this matters to you. The automotive landscape you're familiar with might look very different in 5 or 10 years. The choices you have, the prices you pay, the way you think about transportation and energy, all of it could shift dramatically. And isn't that exciting? Change can be intimidating, sure, but it can also be energizing. The possibility of cleaner air in our cities, quieter streets, lower transportation costs, energy independence for homes and businesses, and a thriving local manufacturing sector creating jobs, these aren't small things. These are genuinely transformative possibilities. So keep your eyes on this space. Test drive an electric vehicle if you get the chance. Visit one of these new dealerships and ask tough questions. Demand transparency about real-world performance, charging times, and total ownership costs. Be an informed consumer, but also be open to the possibility that the future of transportation might be arriving faster than you expected. The electric revolution is coming to Africa, and it's bringing 5-minute charges, 400-kilometer ranges, and price tags that might actually fit your budget. That's not hype. That's happening right now. And if you found this deep dive valuable, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment letting me know what you think. Are you ready to go electric, or are you still skeptical? I want to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep questioning everything.